this entitled mum has set out to ruin her sister and Nibbling's life for one petty reason. And if she can get away with it, she's trying to make a stack of cash on the side as well. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So this will not be your everyday r/entitled parents story, since this has been going on for a long time and couldn't possibly remember every dialogue and fight I ever had with my entitled aunt. Yes, I know she's not my parent, but she lives next door, so that probably counts, right? But I'll try and tell you about absolutely everything that happened in the last 3 to 4 years. Some backstory. My aunt, my mother's, who's ill and retired because of it, she was in a coma twice, sister, was kicked out of home 20 years ago. There were many reasons, one of them being the fact that she stole and sold my grandparents' wedding rings. So, 20 years later, when our grandfather was terminally ill, she came back into our lives. She seemed different. She looked like she had changed. I was 17 at the time. This is probably important for later, I don't know. In the meantime, my mother's uncle, you'll read about him too, MU, had built a new house on my grandfather's property. Since he was a very old man, he told me he would give the house to me. Yay! But, of course there is a but, the house did not have all the necessary paperwork that would prove MU's ownership of the house, so it was officially my grandfather's. Also, my aunt had a lot of beef with MU in the past, also important. So in January of 2015, our grandfather died. My mother and aunt inherited all his belongings, some land, a farm, a house, a new house, and some farming equipment. Keep in mind that the new house doesn't have any legal papers, so it is basically worth nothing, even though it is brand new and fully furnished. So since my aunt was all changed and crap, we decided not to split everything in half, and just try to live in harmony. This is where the first thing happened. The house that was supposed to be mine was suddenly my aunt's, and I could do nothing about it. At first she did not want to move back in from city to countryside, but after a few months she decided to do so, and that's where the crap show started. Well, not right from the beginning, but after some time. One day, I got a call from her that I stole a spinning wheel, a device for spinning thread or yarn from fibers, from our attic. Since I had no freaking clue what she was talking about, I confronted her about it, and she did not like that. This is when constant abuse had started. Every few months from that day, she would either accuse me, my mother, or her uncle of something. At first, the accusations were pretty normal, but it got worse and worse with time. When she was in the accusation mood, she would come to our house and yell and insult me and my mother, telling us we were all trash, etc. She also liked to do it when I was not at home because she knew I would step up for my mother. I still remember when she called me a few times over the phone, crying, telling me that she is doing it again. When I came home and told her to leave my mother alone because she was sick, she told me that she is not really sick, that she is just acting to receive pension. Obviously not true. And of course she would not stop yelling. But that stopped. She apologized and things were just fine for a couple of months. As I mentioned before, these attacks came in waves. Then one day she called my mother, yelling at her, and told her that I went inside our garage and stole some items. She said that she had seen me and had all the evidence to call the cops on me. I said she should do it, but she refused, telling me she would never call cops on family. Fair play for that, you would think, but I would also say that if I knew I made it up and had absolutely no freaking evidence. She also had a boyfriend who tried to fight me a few times, but we never really got into it, unfortunately. Oh, and she also faked some conversations with some cops, saying it was my DNA on the door handle. No crap, I live there. And also, which cops send DNA tests over SMS? Once again, things calmed down. My mother was afraid of her, so she let it go, and I did not want to go to war with her, since I was not 18 yet and had no evidence of her physical abuse. But guess what? She came back, this time telling me that I stole her wallet and that she is not calling the cops because she 100% knew it was me, or my mother, or our neighbor. It was 100% someone, but she was not calling the cops because she knew. Of course the abuse continued. I fought back, she yelled, my mother cried, over and over again. Then one day she came to us, said it wasn't me or my mother, and apologized. Well, we accepted the apology, but said we would try to interact with her as little as possible. And that's what we did, and everything was fine. She would occasionally come to ask for some coffee or milk, and we gave it to her, hoping she would see that we do not want to hurt her, we just want to live a normal life. In the meantime, she sold most of our land and farming equipment, and lied about the money, keeping it for herself. That's when I saw it was all about the money. She wanted us to pay her off, so she could leave and go live somewhere else. Me and my mother wanted to do that, but couldn't since I was barely 18 and she was retired. So we just had to swallow everything for some time. Some time passed and the next attack came, and it was by far the best one. She accused me of trying to make gold using dark magic. The funny thing is that she actually tried to make gold. She would gather all those different stones and try and melt them into gold. She also tried different methods, but I cannot remember right now. It's been a while. I also tried to cast a spell on her that would make her suffer. She would destroy things around the house and accuse us. She would make these little symbols around the house and claimed it was part of the ritual, and said I did it. She even did this in our house when we were not at home. Oh, and things that had been there for years started bothering her. It is also a part of my magic. The best thing was that she even damaged her own car just to prove it was me. It really got to me and my mother. We were throwing up every morning, feeling totally out of energy. Your usual nervous stuff. She would always yell at my mother when I was at work. And one time, I had enough. I went home from work and called the police. Guess what? She had some important stuff to do and left. I told the police everything. Dark magic, gold, etc. And they just said that I should call the doctors to take her away next time. Well, it did not stop. She would continue to yell at my mother when I was not at home, and at me when I came back. Also, the black magic stuff continued with her setting up this ritual stuff everywhere. And I called the police again. She was at home this time, but of course I had no evidence, and they could do nothing except tell us that we would get fined if we called again. Well, the abuse continued for some time until eventually, her boyfriend, who realized what was actually going on, left. Later, I found out that he tried to tell her to stop, but she would not listen. And yeah, I was the one responsible for them fighting. She then accused us of making him leave, yelled at us some more, but it stopped with time. She would still come to ask for things and/or money, but my mother refused to give things to her because she never paid back the money or compensated for food, etc. Another excuse to yell at us. But that was pretty much it for some time. Me and my mother were gathering money to pay her off the entire time, and I was doing my best to protect her. I was 19 or 20 at that time. Oh, and my MU was also one of the people accused throughout the whole thing. And now the finale. A few weeks ago, it all started again. She said that we must sell every single land remaining because she deserves that money for 20 years she had to live elsewhere. She said that I have to give her son half of the money my grandpa gave me after I finished elementary school, which would be fair if he had any contact with him, but he has not seen him for like 15 years and barely even came to the funeral. She also said that she will sell half of our house because hers was worth nothing and ours had papers. It is like 100 years old, for goodness sake. It is worth nothing, like 30-50k most. But nobody would pay that. We had to move everything off her half of the property. She divided it herself. So my mother had to give away her chicken, which she liked very much, and were her only hobby. We don't kill chicken, we give them away to people and let them die of natural causes. She's also thinking of suing the municipality and the country itself for these 20 years she had to spend away from home. Oh yeah, she also grows weed. And one day she claimed that somebody had poisoned her weed. At first it was our neighbor who did it, but then out of nowhere it was me. I found out about that yesterday, but of course she quickly changed her mind, saying I stole it from her. And yeah, this time she did call the police to tell them that somebody poisoned her weed. Yep, she did that. She got a fine and invitation to court, I believe. She later spread rumors around that I am the one growing weed. Also, she accused, darn, I use that word a lot, me, my family, my neighbors, and everyone she could think of being guilty for people dying because we used black magic wrongly. Yep, she thinks I'm responsible for traffic accidents. There is so much more, but I just don't feel like writing everything up because I might throw my laptop over the window. I'm starting to think that this entitled aunt is either paranoid or has some other mental issue going on there, which when it comes to those things, it's like how much do you blame the mental condition and how much do you blame the actions of that person? Like how much responsibility do they have over their actions when there's some other mental thing going on for them? I tend to lean more towards everyone should take personal responsibility despite what hand they're given, because otherwise you often see the opposite, where people use the bad hand they've been given as an excuse to treat everyone else like crap. Yes, there are definitely people who, for whatever it might be, physically, mentally, socioeconomically, are in a position of disadvantage over others, but you can either use that as an excuse to not self-improve and to treat others poorly, or to overcome your situation and become a stronger person. I'm a dance teacher and there's this one parent, EM, that I've had issues with. She used to do dance lessons and brag about having a grade 3 in dance, which is not that good. And now she stays for the full lesson. No other parents do this, and stands off to one side, calling out instructions to her kid. Most of the time, these instructions are wrong, and all of the time, it distracts from my lesson in a big way. She's also clearly seen one too many episodes of Dance Mums, because she's always talking to other parents, saying her kid is clearly the best dancer, and even though we're not a competitive team, and these are only lessons, she'll talk about how her kid deserves more attention from me, and how if we did contests, she would win every one. All the students know to ignore her, especially when she's backseat teaching. But when I'm calling out instructions and another voice is giving completely different instructions, then it's going to confuse them. Her daughter, IK, is an incredible dancer. IK is 10. She's been dancing since she was 4, and she's at a level I'd expect of someone much older. She's talented. She understands rhythm. She has skill and control. She wants to be here, and she's a joy to teach. My only issue with her is her mother, and I've done my best not to let the mother interfere with my teaching. I've tried to get EM to leave, but due to bureaucratic bullcrap, I can't kick her out of the room. Just ask her politely to step out, and she can say no, which she does. I have power over my students as their teacher, but the parents pay for the sessions, so they are essentially the customer, and the customer is always right, even when they're wrong. Both myself and my TA have talked to her and asked her to stop, and it's never worked. Sometimes she'll say okay and then be quiet for 10 minutes or so, maybe the rest of class if we're lucky, but by next lesson, at latest, she'll be at it again. I've spoken to the director of the school and he said unless he personally gets an overwhelming number of complaints about EM from other parents, then there's nothing he can do. The parents do complain about her frequently, but it's always to me, not the director. I tell them to go to the director and to talk to him directly because I can't do anything with the limited power he gives me. But either none of them are complaining to him or they're not complaining frequently enough. In any case, he's always said that he needs more before he can make any move against her. So the other day I'm teaching my class. EM is there. She's calling out instructions, making kids lean and turn the wrong way, and eventually she tells IK to launch off the wrong foot, and IK collides with another student. It's not too bad, no injuries, but they fall, and then everyone around them stops. Out of sheer frustration, my dumb butt looks at EM and says, in the most sarcastic way possible, "Do you want to come up here and teach the lesson?" She freaking does. This crazy beast stands at the front of the room and starts to talk the kids through the steps, once again getting them completely wrong. Poor IK is on the verge of tears and gesturing for EM to stop, and I yell over her that we are going to take a 10-minute break and I'll add the time on the end of the session. I then leave the room, go to the director's office, grab a stack of the comment cards he leaves outside his door, bring them back to where some of the parents are standing outside of the studio, give them roughly half the cards and tell them, if you want EM gone, this is how you do it, and tell them they can find the box to return them outside the director's office. I then go to the cafe, where the other parents tend to sit and get work done, while they wait for their kids, and give them the gist of what's going on. I don't even need to say her name. Everyone has been to a session and watched her scream at their children and talk over me. The teacher they have hired. I put the rest of the cards on the nearest table, tell them the same thing as the other parents, and get back to my class. On arrival, I find out that EM has continued to teach the whole time I was gone. My TA did her best to stop her and correct the kids, but enough damage has been done that when we go through the routine one more time, they've gone from being pretty much in sync and knowing it by heart to falling over each other and screwing up the steps. It's been a couple of days and the director has emailed me yesterday saying he's had several complaints about EM specifically, so he's gonna contact her saying that she's not allowed to sit in on classes anymore. She can either sit in her car or go to the cafe for the duration of the lesson. If she comes in, I am allowed to kick her out, as of now, and if she tries anything, then after that, the IK's father can bring her. I then had a lesson today with IK and EM showed up and was standing outside for about 5 minutes before she came in and went back to calling out instructions. She is now permanently banned from the art school I work at and IK's dance lessons, and I asked at the reception and they confirmed that IK's father has added himself to the visitors sheet for next week's session. I would hate to be one of those dance instructors. I mean, not that I can dance or anything like that. That would probably add difficulty to the job, but imagine having a parent every single class harassing you and your students, thinking that she's somehow better than you. Okay, well if she's so much better, why doesn't she just teach her kid to dance at home? I mean, you'd save money, you'd save time driving there. I think it must be like a showing off thing. Well, I used to do dance when I was younger and I was really good, and so I'm gonna prove that somehow by bossing everyone around. Of course she gets it all wrong and messes it all up though. Good on the instructor for finally getting all the parents to write the stupid comment cards. She should have had the ability right from the start to be like, stop disturbing my class, leave. Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.